Well, hey everyone, it's Michael Phair from BIT here. I hope you're all well. Today, on our next episode of Lowdown, I'm joined with Fraser Kerr. How you getting on, Fraser? You well?
Yeah, really good. Thanks. Thanks for having me, Mikey, as well. It's nice to speak with you.
Nah, smashing. Thanks for taking the time to do it. Fraser is a financial planner at 1825. Now, I've kind of brought Fraser on as someone I know personally, and he seems to know quite a lot about the financial markets and what's going on just now around the world. He's been a great source of advice for me personally, and I thought it would be beneficial, to kind of bring him on here and have a chat with him as well. So hopefully you don't mind, Fraser, of picking your brain.
Yeah, not at all. Also, yeah, it's not going to take you long to pick my brain, to be honest with you. There's not much going on there, so I hope it's fit for purpose. But no, it's good just to kind of share a few shared experiences and hopefully add some value to the guys over at BIT and all the guys that you work with as well.
Cool. No, fantastic. So looking at the market update just now, where are we at the moment then?
I think really sort of where we are just now, it's so hard to pinpoint exactly where we are because it's such unprecedented and unfamiliar waters. And I think just really on that note, you're seeing sort of the landscape for investments changing dramatically as it shifts from area to area. Obviously, it started out in Asia, and then we've really seen it sort of spread across to Europe, being described as the epicenter. And now what we're really seeing as well is that it's these emerging markets in the countries there that are really bearing the brunt of it all just now. You know, the likes of the news today that's just released about Peru taking over Italy as the country with the most cases, and really just seeing the shift towards the BRIC nations, Brazil, Russia, India, and China. You know, they're really sort of taking the brunt of it with where they are. And I think it's important to note that traditionally their economies are slightly different from our own as well, and potentially the infrastructure in terms of the support might not be there in meeting the need to combat it. So it's really just trying to be aware that the coronavirus is very much a moving beast, and it's obviously impacting everything, certainly dominating the conversations I'm having with my clients on a daily basis. And I think it's just the emotional aspect of it as well. You know, it's in the news, it's dominating every conversations. All Zoom calls are being dominated by coronavirus. It's incredible that something that, you know, so few people had heard of 6 months ago is now just so interwoven with people's lives, and is now, you know, it's hard to imagine a world where it's not present, you know. And yeah, it's incredible. I think really just to kind of summarize where we are, though, I would definitely just say it really is an unknown, and I know that's a bit of a cop out of an answer, but I do think that, you know, it's just a big question mark over where we are just now. So I think it's more important for people to remember ultimately why they've invested, the time horizons for why they've invested, and remember sort of those more emotional sides as well, and try and take that emotion out of investing too. But yeah, bit of a cop out of an answer for you there, Mikey.
No,
So sorry
completely.
for that.
No, I think it's very similar to recruitment at the moment in terms of, when will the market kind of stabilise or return to what the new normal is, etc. And
Absolutely.
everyone's got varying views. You could phone me on a Monday, I'll tell you something different to a Friday. And I
Yeah.
suppose it just depends on, what the different clients are doing across the market, what areas they work in, if it's hospitality, if it's flights, aviation, etc. Everything's been affected in different ways. So it's kind of mapping out in that comparison.
It's definitely one thing I would say as well in terms of the IT guys at 1825. Colin McAdam, who sits on the board, he's the head of our IT and all the IT regulation, and the transition to getting people going from, you know, that office-based environment to all of a sudden migrating everyone to working from home. I mean, you'll know better than me what the work involved in that is and the amount of resource that's needed. But I mean, it was a very smooth transition, but yeah, I don't envy the guys for that as well. So yeah, hats off to anyone who's involved with that, because I mean, IT seems to almost be at the sort of forefront and the epicenter of everything just now.
Yeah, move quite quickly. There you go, Colin. There's your shout out, your applause.
Yeah,
well done for getting them all sorted so
yeah.
quickly.
I'll tag them in this.
Yeah, you'll be first in line if you need any support now.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned to me kind of off camera a few times, Fraser, about remaining invested in a failing market. Why do you kind of say that? And, why is that important?
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that I think is so important as a financial advisor is, you know, the sort of almost emotional hand-holding going through something like this, because obviously investing, it can be hugely emotional, and money in general is a very emotive subject. So when you think about, pension funds, investments that are for a particular reason, like retirement, paying for weddings, paying for anything, trips of a lifetime, it's such an emotive part of people's lives, both positively and negatively. So I think it's so important with people that, you do have that sort of emotional capacity for loss discussion as well as financially, because obviously when a market is falling, ultimately that is the worst time to sell your investments and to sell your assets and to actually crystallize those losses. And it's easier said than done, looking back at 2008 financial markets. It's easy now looking at a graph and saying after 18 months we went from a point of abject misery and low to then 18 months it was, much higher than it was even pre-crash. So, but when you're actually embroiled in that and you're at the center of it emotionally, it's a very difficult thing to do. But ultimately, I think that there's no way that you can time markets. It's that famous Warren Buffett quote. He always said, it's not about trying to time the markets, it's about time spent in the markets. And I think anyone who says that they can time these markets, consistently, time and time again, is kidding themselves on. And I mean, I know for a fact I certainly can't do it, else I wouldn't be on this video call with you. I'd be on a beach in the Bahamas somewhere. But certainly, if you miss these key days of growth, there's some brilliant graphs on it. JP Morgan have done a lot of work on it as well, and I'll share so you can include with the guys potentially as well, and in reference. But if you miss these key days of growth, it can be seriously detrimental to you as an investor. So I would always try and remind clients of why they're invested, focusing on those long-term horizons of what they're investing for, and just really reinforcing that aspect of potentially crystallizing those losses. But again, that's not to say you might still see further falls as well. It's just such a complex and a hard industry and sector to gauge. But I would definitely say remaining invested in a falling market, and then trying to capture that going forward is certainly the main crux of the conversations I'm having. But conversely as well, if you're in the accumulation phase, when markets are actually depressed in value, it actually is a positive if you think about it, because that way you're saving monthly. For example, you've got your BIT workplace pension. So every month you're in a position where you're buying units and those units are invested in your pension. So with markets being depressed in value, you're actually able to buy more units, and then if and when there's a market bounce back, you'll actually see a real rebound there. So for those in the accumulation phase, it's very different from those in the decumulation phase of their lifestyle, of their life path. So I think it's more about individual circumstances and individual position. But yeah, I think it's just a falling market tests the mettle of anyone. But I think if you have the ability to, definitely trying to endure that is the right course of action for the majority of people.
Yeah, and opening up a lot of the papers and stuff over the weekend, there's always this kind of comparison, 2008, of this graph.
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone's seen it, and it's this kind of like 2%, and then you see April sitting at like 20. What I suppose kind of the comparison to previous challenges, 2008, is it as bad as it looks in the paper?
Yeah, well, I'm sure as well, even going one back, when the dot-com bubble burst, and I'm sure there was clients that you work with that would have been experiencing that as well on the IT side of things. And between that and 2008, I think people are just trying to model the impact of coronavirus and try and use something as a benchmark and a comparator. And certainly 2008 is the most recent one, and the one that lives on in recent memory. So I think it's important to note about, government stimulus has been strong, and it came in really hard and fast in terms of where we are just now. The Chancellor's continuing to announce more stimulus packages, more quantitative easing, and more support for employers. So I think there is similarities in terms of where we are, but I think that the commitment from the government is there to try and bring everything back, the furlough scheme and what they're trying to do with that as well. And I think there is similarities with 2008, but I think just the nature of the fact that the coronavirus has really just impacted so many people on such a level before that it's a lot more widespread than the 2008 financial crisis. I think with the 2008 financial crisis, people felt they had someone to blame as well, in terms of the finance sector and these toxic loans that were taken on, and it was just irresponsibly managed. And since then, as a result, companies have had to become more responsible and be better balanced in terms of their management and the due diligence that goes on behind the scenes as well. So I think there is a lot more robustness to the economy than there was then, and I think that infrastructure that's been put in place from 2008 is a key differentiator. But I think as well, really, there is just question marks over the impact of COVID-19, the length of time it's going to last for, and I think ultimately, so much hinges on a vaccine or in terms of things potentially returning to normal. And again, it's just such an unknown. So another classic sitting on the fence cop out answer for you there, Mike.
No, not at all. I mean, it's good to get an idea and I suppose get some kind of thoughts from someone like on the financial planning side like yourself. So it's good to get ideas around how things are looking, how they're moving, etc.
Yeah, we get great updates, from the guys at Aberdeen Standard Capital and Aberdeen Standard Investments, and it's just it's just incredible. It's exactly like you said. If you speak to me on a Monday, you get a different conversation to on a Thursday. And it's all these different outputs, and I think as well, that sensationalist headlines don't help, and certainly not with clients on an individual basis. You see alarmist headlines about the FTSE dropping and staggering amounts up to 25%, but it's all about relating to people how that actually impacts them and what their investments are. We manage everything from a risk-based perspective and try and align that to the person's circumstances and, like I touched on, their emotional and financial capacity for loss. So it very much is different, but it's hard not to get bogged down in what these headlines are, because like I said, it's just everywhere. It's just in your face all the time. You can't move without COVID-19 being everywhere.
I know completely. It is that. I'm ready for a welcome break, hopefully soon.
Yeah.
I mean, there's obviously a lot of contractors, working through BIT at the moment, and also a lot of contractors, out in the market. The contract market has been kind of hit significantly, but hopefully it is starting to kind of pick back up again. From the financial planning side of things, then, what advice would you give to contractors, with a limited company just now?
Yeah, I really think it's so important to have sort of your multiple pots of funds, if you will, and it really does come down to just basic fundamentals in terms of having a really good cash buffer there that's readily accessible and easily accessible, that can tide you over during short-term hardship, or if there's any unexpected expenditure that comes up. And then potentially having a second pot, smaller amount of funds, perhaps invested tax efficiently, but albeit maybe defensively, through say a stocks and shares ISA or another investment vehicle. And then obviously still having that importance of, you've got your pension there for long-term planning and retirement planning as well. But I think it's very unique for limited company contractors as well, because sometimes they miss out on the protection and the safety net of the employer, and that's certainly something I've seen with some of my clients. And really in that circumstance, I would definitely recommend, the likes of income protection and having that whole of life cover. And that's just because they don't have the safety net of the employer, and looking at those as a vehicle for providing peace of mind ultimately, because I think that's the main thing that financial planning tries to do, is provide clients and those that we engage with just a bit of clarity on where they are, and also a bit of peace of mind. I definitely would say that is the overriding aim for what I want to do for my clients. I want them to have total confidence, peace of mind, and clarity with their finances. And I think if contractors start to think about the three pots in terms of their short-term liquid assets, medium-term medium to long-term investments, maybe with a 5-year time horizon, and then their long-term pensions, and then really just underpin everything with good solid protection policies. I think that is that forms the crux of just having a really good benchmark for them.
Oh, fantastic. Before obviously moving at the more kind of personal side of things, then, Is there any kind of last thoughts or anything you'd like to give, on market predictions for this year or for next year?
Yeah, absolutely not. I'm sure I would have 1825 compliance trapping at my door as well if that was to be the case. But I really do think that with where we are, as a financial planner, first and foremost, I'm really trying to reassure clients about why they're invested, what the long-term goals are that we have, and trying to just remind them of that as well. And really, that is the main sort of driving force for me. It's more sort of trying to focus on the longer term, because with any investment, there's going to be highs and there's going to be lows, and it comes back to all the emotions attached with that, as I've said before. So I definitely have no predictions for where the market would go, but I would just always try and remind people, just engage with your finances, be engaged with them. There's nothing worse than sticking your head in the sand. It's definitely a beast that's worthwhile meeting head on. And the more you engage with them, I think the more successful you'll be. So I think really that would be my sort of closing piece, would definitely be around just trying to engage with your finances, engage with what you're doing, remember why you've got your finances set up the way you do. And I think as well, you can underestimate the importance of an old-fashioned budget planner as well, and just having a good handle on what's going out and what's going in each month. And really getting back to basics, I think, is important. And yeah, with COVID-19, it's certainly a spanner that no one's seen coming in the works.
Yep.
Or could have predicted the impact it would have. But I think it's a great example and a great cautionary tale for people, including contractors that are working with BIT. It really does kind of show almost a worst case scenario, in terms of where you are. So I think if you do have these good behaviours and good attributes in place, then it'll stand you in good stead.
For going through the rest of the year as such. Yeah, cool, awesome. So obviously, you'll see, Fraser, I like to run.
Yeah.
I believe it was actually you that first got me into the old running.
And now you've overtaken me. You're better than me now.
Got it on camera.
Yeah.
No, so me and Fraser, he got me on my first 10k, which is at Musselburgh, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I remember.
Emotionally charged day for us.
Yeah, it totally was. I remember slogging around, training throughout the winter, doing 5Ks at night, stopping every kind of like 3 minutes, 4 minutes for a breather. And now, being able to run like a half marathon and not stopping. So no, I thank you for that. It's been an awesome experience.
I think credit's due to yourself. The difference from when we first started to now, is incredible. You're some athlete now.
Thanks. So what are you doing in terms of in stuff this year? Like what's on the horizon for you, like in terms of like running? What have you been up to?
Well, I'm a big believer in competition brings out the best in people, and and that's why even running with yourself, it was good to have someone to compete with, and I definitely am all for signing up for events as a real motivator for me. I struggle to potentially motivate myself to go out for a run without the deadline of an event or something hanging over me. So we both of us, we had all our events and everything booked up, and that kind of culminated in a half Ironman for me at Loch Bay in August.
Awesome.
So that was what I was really looking forward to. But just on Tuesday, they actually got an email from the guys who'd organised it, just saying that they've had to postpone it, unfortunately.
Right.
And I think that's just the case with all of these big events. It's just not feasible or practical just now in the current climate, and so many of these events have been pushed back. I've nothing I've signed up for is going ahead, but yeah, I would love to do the half Ironman before I'm 30 and try and get that ticked off. So that would be that's one for the bucket list, definitely. But I think just trying to get out and run and get on the bike is good for me in terms of where I am. I don't see me getting in the pool anytime soon. But yeah, I do. I just think it's good for me. Over the last couple of weeks, I've definitely fallen by the wayside a little bit, and maybe that's as a consequence of not having an event to look forward to, if you will. So I think in terms of for my own sanity and headspace as well as my waistline, I need to get back to it. So I need to follow your example. I need to get shamed by your Strava more.
People see what I want them to see on LinkedIn, and that's me running. You don't see me eating a bag of Doritos on a Monday night. No, it's so easy. I mean, it's total call center diet, and I think just now people are at home. your kitchen is literally 2 minutes away. You get a break. I've had 3. You've seen obviously the coffee machine I've got in that, my wee barista in. But I've had 3 of them today. I mean, absolutely buzzing off coffee. But I think there's like a couple of 100 calories in each one of them.
That was the same, Grace, for me. Just before lockdown started, my fiance Erin, she bought me a coffee machine. So even just today, I've already had a caramel latte. I mean,
Nice.
I don't know who I think I am, but yeah, I had my caramel latte today, and yeah, like you say, it's little things like that, but it fair adds up,
Oh, totally. I mean, you were saying about the events and stuff getting moved for this year. Obviously, I was training for that marathon in April time, so that got moved, but it's actually been moved to September. So I mean, it's 12 weeks from Monday. It's meant to be happening. But it's almost kind of off-putting to put the 12 weeks work in case it doesn't go ahead. So I mean, I'm looking up here just now. I've got my 12 weeks lined out, my strength training days, my hill training, my long runs and stuff all planned out. And I started going through the crosses this week and getting them on. But
yeah,
I don't think I can do it again. I don't think I can be told it's not going to happen and then do it again.
I know. It's just such an anticlimax, isn't it? And you've got your event as well coming up at the start of July, don't you? The BIT, the charity run that you're doing.
Yeah, well, Audro, yeah. So Audro, the video platform guys, are doing a 10K and a half marathon sponsored event. So that's on the 10th of July. I think I'll be totally fine for that, not to be overly confident.
Yeah.
I'll get it done depending on what time it is, I don't know. But yeah, they're all gearing up for that. There's a lot of chat internally about some of the guys like, I can't do the 10. I'm like, it's all in your head. Reframe, change the inner voice.
That's it's the competition for me. I think it just brings out the best so much, So I definitely I'm all for that. I think that's something that we need to kind of hang on to, in terms of these shared experiences and shared events, because it's too easy to kind of shut yourself away and just focus on the mundane, and get a bit bogged down in things. It's good to take a step back and have some shared experiences with people, because they're becoming harder and harder to come by these days.
Oh, totally, because we're all locked in. And I mean, Nicola Sturgeon just announced. I think we all thought we could go into someone's house from this weekend and maybe like have a beer or have dinner or something like that. Bring your own cutlery and plates, obviously. But that's our said that it's, just to use the toilet.
Yeah,
you're still outside.
Yeah, it's just again, it's such an unknown, isn't it? I mean, there's just so many variables that they must be taken into consideration, and you just hope that these decisions are going to be for the benefit of people overall. But it's just such a load. Every decision is so loaded, and there's so many consequences and things to think about and consider. It's I don't envy anyone who's involved in that decision making process, even with our own company. It's on a much smaller scale than the government, obviously, but it's just so hard, and the impact of everything. It's you go down the rabbit hole, and as soon as you take one left turn, it opens up a whole different section of things to go down and discuss. So
I know,
not easy. I don't imagine it's easy for you guys either. Again, as well, because you're kind of again on the front line of it all, and contractors asking you what's going on, but it's so hard to know.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? How's the adapting to like working from home remotely been for you? I mean, has the company got a kind of a feel for what they're going to do this year, remote working wise? They're going to kind of split it up, or
well, I mean, really, I again, I can't credit where we are enough as an organisation on that front. I think there was a big investment in 1825's technology and remote working ability just at the end of 2019, and in hindsight, it really couldn't have came at a better time. So the transition, again, it was so seamless in terms of getting everyone up and running and working from home, and the guys did an incredible job there.
Colin's going to love you. That's him. He's in.
Yeah, Colin's on the board, so I'm hoping for some special here. But and fundamentally, the main thing for us was making sure that our clients weren't disadvantaged in any way, Michael. To be honest with you, and I, hand on heart, really do believe that. They've really. Our operational efficiencies are at 100%, and everyone couldn't be more than pulling their weight. It's incredible to see when you give people that trust and responsibility, how they rise to the occasion. So no, I definitely think we're in a good shape, and looking forward, I think, while we are working so efficiently and able to help our clients so much, I don't think they're rushing us to be back in that office environment. It's very much something that they are taking under due consideration, as and when information comes out. But I think as well, it's not something that they're really pushing for.
Yeah. Okay, no, that's fantastic. Fraser, well, thanks very much for taking the time to chat to me, to go through this, on your thoughts of, financial planning and what's been happening, and some advice also for our contractors. What's the best way, if anyone wants to kind of, get in touch with you or reach out to you, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Absolutely. I really couldn't stress enough that, if someone did want to have a conversation or anything, or even just a bit of guidance, I'm more than happy to speak to anyone. LinkedIn is a great way, and I can provide my email address as well. It's just fraser.kerr@1825.com. And, I'm more than happy to pick up with people and help. And again, I think it just all comes down to a bit of peace of mind and clarity regarding certain actions and where we are. So, yeah, really, I'll make sure and pass over all my contact details, Mikey. But yeah, probably email or LinkedIn's the best,
Cool.
to be honest.
Awesome. Well, I'll make sure and tag it in the post when we get this up.
No,
Thanks so much for your time, Fraser. It's been awesome talking to you.
No, I really appreciate it, Michael. And again, I've it's a series I've really enjoyed watching. When we do get a bit of an update. So,
Yeah.
credit to yourself. I know the recruitment industry is not without its challenges as well, but thinking outside the box and just challenging yourself and pushing boundaries a little bit. A lot of credit due to yourself as well on that.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm going to start
Awesome.
crying.
No, I know you're going to get me going. No, thanks very much, mate. It's been great talking to you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, take care,
Cheers.
Mikey. All the best.
Thanks.